Here we are yet again trying to find meaning in our lives and the purpose of our existence in this corporeal realm. Stoicism in general has always appealed to me, and this book in particular is special because, first, it was written by one of the greatest rulers Rome ever saw, Marcus Aurelius. Second, is that it is so old and it still reads so fresh. The ideas that this book espouses, we still deal with those topics today, and it's amazing to just comprehend the thought that this ruler who had everything under his control had all the money, all the power one could ever want, and at such a point in his life, he decides to live a life of such simplicity, such truth and justice and adherence to values that it puts our leaders of today to shame. And it begs the question, does power really corrupt? Because from everything we can tell about this man, he really lived the life he preached. And that definitely has to be something special. Anyway, before I get too deep into the book and the concepts itself, I want to put a quick word in about the translation itself. The original obviously was written 2000 years ago in Greek, and there have been multiple translations, way more than I would even be able to concisely mention here, but the popular ones are one by Gregory Hayes, which I found to be more of a practical guide to Stoicism, but it lacked some qualities. For example, it was not the idea itself that the text was mentioning, but what lessons you could learn from it, and I didn't enjoy that as much. There's another popular one by George Long, I think. This one is a bit older. It's sometime in the 1800s, and that has archaic English, but again, that wasn't even my issue. It's again too dense for me to understand, so I picked something in between. This one is by Penguin Classics. I think Stanisforth is the guy's name. This was released sometime in 2004, and it's a mix of the practical advice and the original ideas from Marcus himself. So I liked this version a lot more than the other two that I just mentioned. One more thing that amazes me is that this book was not meant for public consumption or publication even. It's a miracle that the text even survived and it got transcribed into so many different languages. Can you imagine how incredible that is? That something that was written in 100 AD, well, the Bible survived, sure, but that had a whole propaganda machine behind it. But this book, Meditations in particular, was never meant for anyone else. It was just his personal diary, that of this great Roman emperor, and it survived only because of the ideas contained in it. And again, it's something special. There's no other way to describe it. And it's also ironic because one of the things that the book mentions constantly is this theme of death and time consuming all, but the book itself survives everything. Again, makes this book even more special. Just to set a little bit more context before I get into the text itself, my whole idea of this period of history comes from this great podcast called Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. He has this incredible series. I think it's called Death Throes of the Republic, which deals more with Caesar and Cato and such. Their timeline is something like uh, 70 BC, something like that. So Marcus obviously comes later, much later, in fact. He is the son of Antoninus, if I remember right. Again, another one of the great rulers of Rome. But the podcast is incredible. It helped me visualize all the different things that were happening and the family dynamics, the wars. This was written when Marcus was about 40, 50 years of age. He was fighting some German tribe, I believe. And the other stories from Dan helped me visualize the setting and the context much better. So thank you, Dan, for that. Also, on a more pop culture note, quick shout out to everyone's favorite Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. It's rare to see philosophy quoted in film. You sometimes see some Nietzsche quotes here and there, but that's the extent of it. So, thank you, Silence of the Lambs. All right, enough of the yapping. Now let's get on with the book. Book one starts with a list of people that Marcus knew from a young age, or people who were dead, but he learned something from them, so he mentions them. And it's just a very short list of his lessons from each of them. And it's a good exercise to do in general. I've always thought of doing this as well, that you write down the names of every single person you know, and this part I have done. But along with that, you also write down what you learned from them. This is a much tougher thing to do, but that's what book one is. His key takeaways are that there is something to learn from everyone, even the bad parts. So when you see something bad in a person, you can recognize it for what it is and not do the same thing. I think a quote from the book itself is something like, the best form of revenge is to not become like the person who did the crime, something like that. So you can learn from good people how to be, and you can learn from bad people how not to be. So they are helping you in either case. So this is what I took away from book one. The rest of the books are building towards this great grand idea, and which is again a core idea in Stoicism itself, that there are things that are outside your control. These are governed by the world order or nature herself, which takes the form of a deity in his world at the time. And there are some things that are in your control, and you guide them based on your own reason, your own morality, your own values. And what are these values? They are also dictated by nature or reason, and it's a self contained thing. You have to observe restraint, show kindness to people around you, be just to everyone who comes to you. And you can find all of this in nature and within yourself if you took the time out to analyze your thoughts and analyze the things around you and how they behave. Everything is guided by reason, is the main tenet of Stoicism. And you also have to do that. You have to respect nature. You have to accept the things that happen to you without complaint, because nature ordained it to be so. So instead of complaining, look at what you can do about it. If there is a just good thing you can do about it, then do that. If not, then let the rest of it up to God or up to nature, and they will take care of it. And this is a just way to live your life. One quick aside that I wanted to mention is, for some reason, maybe, I've always seen this concept of love being injected into everything whenever we talk about meaning of life or the ultimate goal to achieve. But in this case, in this book at least, love takes much more of a backseat. There is nature, there is gods, there is soul, there is reason guiding all of this, but love maybe takes a backseat compared to all of this. So observe nature, see how it operates, and replicate it in your own life, and you will be at one with nature, which gives you purpose, and it will give you a fulfillment in your life, which you cannot achieve by any other means, by pleasure or alcohol or vices or robbery. None of this comes close to the fulfillment and satisfaction you will achieve if you live with nature and according to nature. And again, this is the bare bones of Stoicism that I absolutely admire. And I think there is something to it. Maybe if you do all of this, then you might go on to find love in doing this. But again, like I said, love isn't the goal that you're trying to achieve through doing all of this. Maybe it's a byproduct of it. But I like that Marcus himself doesn't talk about love as though it's a primary goal to achieve. All right, what else do we have? We have focus on thoughts, don't waste them on random uncharitable things because death catches up. Well, I've quickly mentioned about death being a central theme throughout the book. He constantly keeps in mind the past rulers, the past thinkers of his time, Aristotle, Plato, for example, who were again, who laid the foundations of Stoicism, but he constantly mentions them and he asks, where are they now? They are in the ground. They are dead. They are ashes. What happened to all the territory that Alexander the Great conquered? What happened to Caesar? They are all dead. Only thing left is what people say about them, and those people will also be dead someday. So you only live for a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, so don't waste your time on unnecessary things. Again, none of this is something that I can argue with, not that I am in a position to do so, but all of this is just basic sense. We are all going to die, we know that. He isn't saying anything novel, it's just that you have to constantly remind yourself, because otherwise these dopamine hits through social media hit you, and you forget that in the long arc of time you are nothing. You are a fleeting presence is all. Maybe your ideas live through your books, for example, in this case. Maybe a few statues that still remain in Rome today, but that's about it. So when you are here, live according to nature. Again, this is, I'm paraphrasing one of the quotes, that if there are gods, then they will judge you because of your good character. If there are no gods, then you still would have lived a good life of virtue. So why not just do that, whether you believe in God or not? Again, very powerful and useful thoughts that we should remind ourselves every single day. What are some good values that you should have? Well, I made a quick list here. They are nobility, kindness, justice, candor, piety. Well, it's he has a interesting relationship with God, which maybe I'll get to later. There is public service. Again, it's incredible that a ruler of his time values public service so much, values justice so much. If you have everything, why would you think of any of this? If I had all the money, if I had all the power, I would just up and leave. I would disappear. You wouldn't hear my name ever again. But not this guy. He wants to do public service for the good of it. The profession is its own reward in this case. And I really envy such people. Maybe that was his purpose. He was born to do this. He is in the royal family after all. He is the king, the ruler of Rome, the greatest of civilizations ever. So maybe that brings into you a responsibility that you will not have otherwise. But I know this isn't the case because, as again, all of my context is coming from Dan Carlin from Hardcore History. But there are kings, there are rulers who only indulge in women, only indulge in alcohol, only indulge in fighting and killing. They don't give two hoots about justice and morality, and much less the higher of the virtues of mercy, forgiveness, understanding your enemy, living with your neighbors, not thinking of what other people talk about you, understanding where they come from. There were rulers who didn't do any of this. So Marcus really, I should say, is an exception, and Rome must have flourished in his time for sure. And again, I'm really jealous that we don't have leaders and even people today who think like this. It's a real shame. All right. What else? Piggybacking off this idea of things that are outside your control, how should you act then when things go outside your control? Well, first you have to realize that there is no good or bad that happens. Things just happen, and you assign value or you assign uh, judgment to it. There is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And I don't know if Shakespeare borrowed it from here, but sure seems like it. It's the exact same thought. So, how should you act when things go not according to plan? Well, you have to live in accordance with nature, and nature will tell you how to act, and you just do that. So, a very simple solution to how to react when things don't go your way. When that happens, you realize that there is nothing good or bad that happens. It's just that you are in your mind assigning it that value, and you don't react at all. It's just that nature wanted it to happen this way, so you accept that and you let nature dictate your actions. Very simple. You cannot control what happens, you can only control how you react to it. It's just the same idea put a lot of different ways. And again, the book does get repetitive. This isn't a redemption story of a hero. It's a more of a Sun Tzu, art of war kind of book. There's also this Magna Carta. It also reads something like this. It's just bullet points, and ideas do overlap quite a bit. What other good qualities are there? There is frugality, there is reason. I've already talked about this. goodness unto people, continuous reflection. Again, a constant theme on constantly question yourself instead of questioning others or getting angry on other people. Question yourself why you think that or why you react like that. What mistake of yours can you find and correct within yourself? And this is true even of other things that are surrounding you. Again, the constant theme of what is this thing that I'm looking at? What is it made of? What does it want? Where will it go? How long will it last? What is its purpose? What are its constituent elements? What do those elements want in themselves? Look at a thing not only from its surface, but dig deep into it, break it into parts, understand what it is made of, and then you will realize it's how it comes together, which is also your body. Again, one of my favorite quotes was, again paraphrasing, but what am I? I am just a bit of flesh. There is some breath in me, which is air, and a soul and a reason to rule it all. Again, I'm sure I butchered the quote. Let me look it up quickly from my highlights. Okay, here it is. It is a little flesh, a little breath, and a reason to rule all. That is myself. And here, the to rule all part of it is not ruling other people, but the reason is what rules you. A reason is what rules your flesh, your breath, your actions. This isn't talking about ruling other people or the kingdom in itself, but it's ruling you. And that is crazy to think that a ruler in himself is talking about a higher power, a higher nature, a higher reason ruling him. All right. Taking another quick aside, I wanted to mention a interesting thing. Obviously, science isn't advanced in 100 AD as it is now, and it's interesting how he deals with scientific questions. I think atoms was a big deal back then, I guess, where this idea of everything being made of particulate matter that in themselves cannot be divided further, which is the literal meaning of the word, I think, and having no soul, that kind of irked Marcus maybe, because he chides things being made of atoms constantly, and he again prefers that there is a all-ruling Zeus or some other deity controlling the flow of things, and he again and again mentions that if things are made of atoms and atoms by definition have no soul, then what is the reason that is governing them, and it doesn't make sense to him. It's very interesting how rulers even at that time used to think of mundane scientific concepts of by today's standards back then. And it's interesting that the sun, light, for example, they have no idea of photons, but they have a deity which controls this, the sun god. Again, I forget the name, but they hold all of this in such high regard, living in accordance with gods, having reverence to the gods. And again, by definition, nature in itself is the highest of the gods. So, do you see how science and religion come together, where uh, up until the end, you have nature governing everything, and you make nature itself as the top of the pantheon gods? Very interesting again. Anyway, the core message is that you can always find solace within your mind, and that is the only thing you can control. So do control it and let nature dictate your actions, not the pleasure you gain out of doing other things, not good food or women. All of these are external uh, pleasures that you must deny yourself if you are a man of reason. Look at the stars, look how they shine on you. And sorry for quoting Coldplay, but that's pretty much what he says. He again and again goes back to nature. Look at the bees. Look at how tirelessly the ants work. Do you see them complaining because someone uh, cut them off their course? You don't. Then why is it that man should complain whenever something uncomfortable happens? Just shut up and do your work as you're supposed to, and let nature guide you. I want to end this review with a selection of my favorite quotes, and these are not well known at all for whatever reason, but I really love them, and they really ham the point in. So here goes. 1. Think of the many years of procrastination, how the gods have repeatedly granted you further periods of grace, of which you have taken no advantage. 2. Mislead yourself no longer. You will never read these notebooks again now, nor the annals of bygone Romans and Greeks, nor that choice selection of writings you have put by for your old age. Press on then to the finish, cast away vain hopes, and if you have any regard at all for self, see to your own security while still you may. 3. Men seek for seclusion in the wilderness, by the seashore, or in the mountains, a dream you have cherished only too fondly yourself. But such fancies are wholly unworthy of a philosopher, since at any moment you choose, you can retire within yourself. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Above all, he who possesses resources in himself, which he need only contemplate to secure immediate ease of mind, the ease that is but another word for a well ordered spirit. Avail yourself often, then, of this retirement, and so continually renew yourself. 4. If anyone can show me and prove to me that I am wrong in thought or deed, I will gladly change. I seek the truth, which never yet hurt anybody. It is only persistence in self delusion and ignorance which does harm. 5. How barbarous to deny men the privilege of pursuing what they imagine to be their proper concerns and interests. Yet, in a sense, this is just what you are doing when you allow your indignation to rise at their wrongdoing. For, after all, they are only following their own apparent concerns and interests. You say they are mistaken? Why then, tell them so, and explain it to them, instead of being indignant. 6. My own nature is a rational and civic one. I have a city and I have a country. As Marcus, I have Rome, and as a human being, I have the universe, and consequently, what is beneficial to these communities is the sole good for me. 7. The man of ambition thinks to find his good in the operations of others, the man of pleasure in his own sensations, but the man of understanding in his own actions. 8. One thing alone troubles me, the fear that I may do something which man's constitution disallows, or would wish to be done in some other way, or forbids till a future day. Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you. 9. When in pain, always be prompt to remind yourself that there is nothing shameful about it, and nothing prejudicial to the mind at the helm, which suffers no injury either in its rational or its social aspect. In most cases, the saying of Epicurus should prove helpful, that pain is never unbearable or unending, so long as you remember its limitations and do not indulge in fanciful exaggerations. Bear in mind also that, though we do not realize it, many other things which we find uncomfortable are in fact of the same nature as pain. Feelings of lethargy, for example, or a feverish temperature, or loss of appetite. When inclined to grumble at any of these, tell yourselves that you are giving in to pain. 10. Ask yourself, what is this thing in itself, by its own special constitution? What is it in substance, and in form, and in matter? What is its function in the world? For how long does it subsist? 11. If possible, make a habit to discover the essential character of every impression, its effect on the self, and its response to a logical analysis. 12. Without an understanding of the nature of the universe, a man cannot know where he is. Without an understanding of its purpose, he cannot know what he is, nor what the universe itself is. Let either of these discoveries be hid from him, and he will not be able so much as to give a reason for his own existence. So, what are we to think of anyone who cares to seek or shun the applause of the shouting multitudes, when they know neither where they are nor what they are? 13. The sinner sins against himself. The wrongdoer wrongs himself, becoming the worse by his own action. 14. Everything is banal in experience, fleeting in duration, sordid in content. In all respects, the same today as generations now dead and buried have found it to be. 15. The woes you have had to bear are numberless, because you were not content to let reason, your guide and master, do its natural work. Come now, no more of this. 16. Enough of this miserable way of life, these everlasting grumbles, these monkey antics. Why must you agitate yourself so? Nothing unprecedented is happening. So what is it that disturbs you? The form of it? Take a good look at it. The matter of it? Look well at that too. Beyond form and matter there is nothing more. Even at this late hour, set yourself to become a simpler and better man in the sight of the gods. For the mastering of that lesson, 3 years are as good as 100. 17. The gods either have power or they have not. If they have not, why pray to them? If they have, then instead of praying to be granted or spared such and such a thing, why not rather pray to be delivered from dreading it, or lusting for it, or grieving over it? Clearly, if they can help a man at all, they can help him in this way. 18. Let your mind constantly dwell on all time and all being, and thus learn that each separate thing is but as a grain of sand in comparison with being, and as a single screw's turn in comparison with time. 19. Let it be clear to you that the peace of green fields can always be yours, in this, that, or any other spot, and that nothing is any different here from what it would be either up in the hills, or down by the sea, or wherever else you will. 20. Our anger and annoyance are more detrimental to us than the things themselves which anger or annoy us. That was my review of Meditations. Great book for anyone who is interested in philosophy, but you didn't need me to tell you that. Do read it for sure. Thank you for listening.